Apparently my husband and children don't understand that I can be soft-spoken at times, so
The mic is live. We just want everyone out there to hear you, out there in radio land or internet land.
Well, I'd like to thank you for allowing me to speak this morning. Last time I was here, I was under a lot more stress and more tired. Thankfully, we're under a lot less stress these days compared to last September, October, and November. But the Board of Elections, as many of you know already, we are overseen by a three-member board appointed every 2 years by the State Board of Elections. That process will begin again for a 2-year term in July. We operate in accordance with the North Carolina General Statutes, Chapter 163, as well as the North Carolina Administrative Code, Title 8. And we are also responsible for administering all elections in Wayne County. Many moons ago, the individual municipalities held their own elections, and way before my time, they changed that rule to allow the county boards to oversee the voter registration records as well as the elections themselves. Who we are. We have 5 full-time employees, including myself. We use 2 part-time seasonal employees pretty much on a as-needed basis. We don't have a set time during the year that they come in and start working. We call them as we need them. Depending on the type of election we are monitoring at the time or administering will determine how many hours we actually use those employees. As you can imagine, a presidential election's the standard by which all elections are judged, that's the election that we would use the most additional help outside of our own staff. During our high volume times, again, most likely the presidential election, we have brought in temporary part-time workers for various tasks. I was fortunate to come on board in September. Some people would say unfortunate, but it was actually a rather painless experience. But as I've gotten through the general election, I've had time to kind of take stock of what we have in our office and how we want to move forward. You're only as good as your next election, and that's a mantra that I have had for the last 12 years, and it's worked well. So as we finish one, we start working towards the other ones, the next one, and the next one. And every election we have between now and 2016, which is our next big one, we will be practicing and preparing for that election. Some of the goals that I have identified is I wanted to review our office procedures and policies for efficiency, make sure we're not wasting time and resources, as well as focus on customer service. You know, my staff and I, we eat, sleep, and breathe this process. So for us, we get questions that we feel like, gosh, if I get asked that question one more time, I'm going to scream. But we also have to realize that the public is not always as well informed as we'd like them to be. So by creating an atmosphere in our office where the public can come in and feel comfortable and feel like they're getting good quality answers, then they will feel more comfortable to come in the next time, and that will eliminate problems on election day. And that's our #1 goal, is to have a smooth elections process. I'd like also to work on our geocode. Now, in layman's term geocode, we don't assign voters to districts, we assign addresses. And the address that the voter gives us when they register to vote, every single address in Wayne County, we have to go in and assign its congressional district, its county commissioner district, state house, state senate, sanitary district, and a couple of other jurisdictions that we work with, as well as municipalities. And that's what we call our geocode. And it is an integral part of our voter registration process. It's the basis and the foundation, if you will, because if we don't know what ballot you get based on your jurisdictions that you're assigned to, then we're going to have a mess on election day. I also want to revamp our precinct official meetings and trainings to prepare for the 2013 and 2014 elections. We had to do some very quick training in 2012. It worked out well, but it's not as good as I'd like it to be. And as a former teacher, I'm always going to be interested in training and making sure I've got good quality staff ready to go. And then improve and provide resources to the public via our website. Now, we do still have a population here in Wayne County that does not use the internet, but we have a growing population that does. And the more information that I can provide to them through our website, then that gives my staff more time and productivity hours to work on getting our elections ready. So how are we meeting our goals? Well, we've already started. We hit the ground running just as soon as we recovered from the election. If you've been by our office in the last month or so, you've noticed that we've rearranged it to provide the public a greater access to the staff. I do keep in mind the safety of my staff, as well as there is some information in our office that is not accessible to the public. But we have rearranged that and eliminated the through-the-door business, which I was not a big fan of, and we're going to continue to improve that process so that the public feels very welcome to come into our office. That is going to be ongoing for a little while till I tweak it and get it how I'd like it. Create a separate space for processing voter registration and absentee requests. We have, and this cost us nothing, we took a room that was in our office that had been previously used for transfer voting, which I don't think we've had a transfer voter in the last 5 or 6 years of elections, and we have now made that a central drop-off place and processing office for our voter registration. What this does is it keeps our voter registration in one place while it's being processed to eliminate the possibility of papers being misplaced or registrations not getting processed fully. Now, I don't have any evidence that that was an ongoing problem. It's just something that I thought would make the office run a bit more efficiently. Wayne County, particularly with the military, the Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, we have a healthy absentee program, and making this room sort of a central processing for that also ensures that we're checking off all of the to-do list with our absentee ballots, because there is quite a bit of processing that goes along when we receive that absentee request. We're reconfiguring the layout of the main office to move both staff members to the front room and alleviate the through-the-door service, as I mentioned. We did that in January 2013. The last part of that puzzle is I'd like to purchase some reception-style desks that would give the staff members space for all of their stuff, for lack of a better term, but establish a countertop so that there is some separation for their safety, as well as the information that they have to keep from the public, which there's not much of that, but there is some that we don't want the public to have access to. Dates of birth is the biggest part of our voter registration that is not public. And that's something that I'd like to suggest be put in the upcoming budgets. But it's a process, and it's already working, so we're hoping to just kind of polish it off a little bit more.
Excuse me, did you say this coming budget, 2013-14?
The coming one.
Yes, thank you.
Geocode. As I said, it's the foundation of everything related to voter registration and election administration. A lot of people think, oh, I get assigned to a county commissioner district. Well, you don't, but your address does. And I can't say enough good things about our planning department and Chip and Connie Price. They have bent over backwards. I know Chip probably hates it when the phone rings and he knows it's me, because he has done well above what he needed to do to help get our geocode reviewed and get some things cleared up. Inaccuracies in that assignment can cause protests. There have actually been elections recalled in other parts of the state because of geocode issues, and we certainly don't want to go that route. It can also cost the county money through new elections or extra unneeded ballot styles. Now, I have started reviewing our geocode. I am not finished. I've gotten it to a point where Chip and I are going to be working on a program that will help me do some more auditing. But just in the work I've done thus far, out of the 141 ballot styles we had in May, you had about 10 that you didn't need, and that's 10 you paid for. We're looking at about 3 to 4, there may be a few more than that, in the general election that we paid for that we didn't need. And that's the kind of cost savings that we can do by making sure that geocode is as pristine as it can possibly be. Again, I've bragged on the county GIS department. Chip and I are actually going to start working on an internal program that will be housed in the elections office that will allow me to make assignments automatically as addresses become available in Wayne County. We're constantly getting notifications that a road's been extended or added, name change. This will also allow me to do some auditing. and make sure that we are going into elections with clean, good records. This will be done in the budget year that we're currently in, and it's coming through the planning's budget. I would like to add a dedicated staff member who can not only assist with geocode, that would be the main function, but with some of the other items that we are working to get the office ready for our next couple of elections. I'm a bit OCD on that, so I'm probably not going to turn over geocode to someone. I will always have a hand in it. That's probably one of my favorite parts of the job. But to have someone that I could rely on to another set of eyes, because when you start staring at roads and addresses for hours and hours on end, you can make mistakes, and we certainly don't want to have that. But we've come a long way, because at one time I have actually done geocode with colored pencils and maps on a floor. So to have it computerized and possibly have some people working with me on that would be a tremendous asset to the county. Precinct official training. Gotta love them, and we gotta have them, and we're going to. In full running capacity, we generally try to put 7 precinct officials at each polling place. That's 210 precinct officials. Plus, we do have several on what we call standby, because inevitably we have had emergencies arise just prior to Election Day, as well as on Election Day, where a precinct official has to leave or cannot serve. So we do have a few individuals who are trained and ready to go out at a moment's notice. Some of the things that I would like to do, the county uses what we call OVERD. I would call it a few other things too, but online voter registration database, and that's used on Election Day. It's very similar to what you see if you have taken part of our one-stop. As far as if you have voted in Wayne County in the last election, which I'm sure all of you have, you gave your name to an official who was sitting in front of a laptop. And this database is wonderful. It saves time. We've actually had I've talked to a couple of counties who have used it for a few more years than we have, and they actually found that it processed voters so fast that they had to slow down because there weren't enough machines available to the voters once they were ready to cast their ballot. That is coming from a county that's been doing it several years, and we're not quite there yet. But one of the things where we can improve upon that process is to increase our training. Now, I know when I did my new employee orientation, there was a really good-looking training room over in the Jeffries building that had just rows upon rows of computers, and I'd like to have separate OVERD training for precinct officials, because not all of our precinct officials are computer comfortable. Certainly, we try to put them in the best fit for the job, but sometimes we just don't have the ability to do that. And having some additional training where we can focus on using that software, which is very simple to use, then we can eliminate some issues and some complaints that we received on Election Day that didn't affect the outcome, thank goodness, but it's just things that I'd like not to have to deal with if I don't have to.
A question, now I'm confused.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry.
Pardon me. A few minutes ago we talked about register to vote through the internet, and then we are over here to this online voter registration database. I'm confused now. Can you register through the internet to vote, or is this calling in someone who's trained to enter that information?
Okay, you can download voter registration form from our website as well as several other websites.
Right.
We are still, as far as I'm aware, you may have heard something from the state level, but from where I'm sitting, that record is still signed by the voter and given to us in paper format. It can be mailed in, dropped off, to that effect. They can fax it as well, but it's still, at some point, a piece of paper that is physically signed by the voter. What I'm referring to here is just the database. So when you register to vote, and on Election Day, we're going to load that laptop with the database, with all the names and addresses and information, so that when you go in to vote and you give your name and address, we will just simply pull you up here. It replaces the old poll books where they'd have to write your name down. It also replaces, if you remember in the last maybe 2 or 3 years, they would pull a sticker out of the book and place it on a piece of paper and give you that piece of paper to go get your ballot. So that's what this OVERD system does. So it's not registering anybody at that point in time. It's purely for
Okay.
lookup.
Unless they are registering and voting at the same time.
Okay, that can only occur during one-stop voting. And the software that we use during one-stop is called SOSA.
Okay.
And that's the, oh goodness, Seems One-Stop Application is what SOSA stands for, if I'm not mistaken, or state. Anyway, if I showed them to you side by side, you wouldn't know the difference in terms of what they look like, the platform looks like. But there is a process during one-stop voting only where you could use that system to register, but you still have to complete a registration form in order to go through that process. So we
Okay.
still have a piece of paper that you've signed.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Cromartie?
this is just a question. Would you prefer to have your questions at the end of your presentation or mixed in?
I'm flexible.
You're flexible.
I'm flexible.
I would like to then ask you to restate something if
Sure.
what I wrote down is correct. You said this current system that we have now is a wonderful system and working very well.
The OVERD.
The oval, I mean, you said, I think you said back up 5 minutes or so ago, it may have been commentary on your part, but you were talking, you said the current system is wonderful. I mean, and I'm talking about the computer part of it, all the workings of it on the day of elections. Would you characterize it as a wonderful, very good working system?
I would.
All right.
Um,
That's all.
Okay.
I just wanted to, I thought I heard you say that, but there's a future question that I have, but I just wanted to make sure that that was a question.
Well, I like it because it replaces a lot of paper. It replaces, it makes doing our voter history when we get back to the office. In the previous years, someone would have to sit there with a barcode gun and one by one by one by one, and after 2012, that would have been 51,000 scans. By using the OVERD system, it was an automatic. Of course, we do review the data to make sure that it all transferred properly. Now, it's a computer, and we all know that you can love them and hate them. So there are times and issues that I would like to cover and clarify through training that we can avoid some user errors in a lot of cases to make sure that we're still running smoothly on Election Day.
So at the end of the day, all the questions that were asked of you were solved, and everyone who wanted to vote got a chance to vote.
As far as I'm aware, yes, sir.
Then is it safe to say that Wayne County did not have any fraud?
Not that I'm aware of.
You were not aware that
I am
Wayne
not
County
aware of
had
it.
any fraud in the election process?
No, sir.
It worked wonderful.
No one brought any cases to me and to the board
All right.
to discuss.
At your previous places of where you worked at prior to coming to Wayne County, can you remember there being any fraud to your knowledge?
No, sir.
not have any?
Not brought before the board, no, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, I have a question. When a person is deceased, do you have a certain length of time, or are they removed from the voter registration immediately?
No, sir, they're not. When a person is deceased, there is a very specific procedure involved in removing that person. One, the family member can request via a signed document to remove that person. We do receive a report from the Department of Health and Human Services monthly of individuals who have died in Wayne County. Where we run into issues, and this is an issue near and dear to my heart because I'm working on it right now in the office, is if the person dies out of the county, or if there's something about maybe they remarried at some point, or there's some discrepancy with maybe their date of birth, that if they have died, it does not, the state runs, and I'm going to mess this up, but the state runs an audit, basically, our voter registration database against the database provided by DHHS. And if there is an exact match, we get a report monthly of these individuals who have died. If there is not an exact match, some of those individuals can be missed. And that's what we're doing in our office right now, is to try and go and see if we can find some way to remove these individuals legally. A lot of people think we could just use an obituary in the paper. That's not a permitted process to remove individuals who have died. We've run into issues where, in a lot of cases, the children may have moved off to some part of the country and have at some point taken mom or dad to their home, and mom and dad end up dying in Colorado, for example. We don't have any way to, at this point in time, to contact the state of Colorado and request a death certificate for said voter. So it's a process that I wish they would improve upon so that we could have a cleaner record.
We have some people that are registered here in Wayne County that passed away in 1999. My next question is that during this time, since this is public record, as far as these voter registrations, is it possible that a person could find that individual that is deceased and actually go vote in their place? Is it possible?
Is it possible? Yes.
Okay.
But keep in mind that we do require the voter to sign the authorization to vote form. So if there was any protest as to the identity of who cast that ballot, we certainly have the signature by which to compare with. But, you know, one of the things that we kind of run into, our voter registration system and our election system, for that matter, is based on honesty. That's not something I can change or know that I'd want to, but yes, it's possible that if I were determined to do that I could possibly get away with it. Now, one of the things you have to keep in mind is precinct officials are trained to, take a look at the person. Obviously, if my paperwork says that this is a 88-year-old white female, and I hope I don't look 88, that they would stop me and say, wait a minute, this doesn't match you. But that's something that is certainly possible.
Well, the individuals that I'm talking about that I know that were deceased in, say, 1999, were born in Wayne County and passed away in Wayne County. Is the death certificate not sufficient evidence to?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I can show you some examples, unless it's been removed in the last 3 or 4 months, that's the case.
Okay, please do. I am in favor of researching this information.
Okay.
Because I know there's a lot of debate right now about voter ID, and it's above my pay grade to have an opinion on that right now, but certainly the first step, and probably the cheapest step that we could take to avoid fraud, is to have clean records. And so any opportunity I have to clean up the voter registration database, I am all for it. So if you've got names, bring them to me.
Thank you.
And we will do the research.
Mr. Aycock, then Mr. Cromartie.
I think you just hit on it, what my question was. If a family member comes in to make sure that, to take someone off the list, you would need a death certificate?
No.
You do not?
No. We have a form that the state board approves, that all counties in the state use, that if I came in to give information that one of my parents had died, then I can, as a near relative, complete that form, and that is enough information to remove that person from the rolls.
Okay.
If I don't have that, I can use a death certificate.
Okay. You mentioned parents, spouse?
Spouse. The definition of near relative for North Carolina is parents, spouse, brother, sister, child, grandparent, grandchild, and I'm going to be guessing at in-laws. But certainly there's a fairly long list. I think niece, nephew, aunt, and uncle is probably about the only thing that's not covered as a near relative. Step-parents, certainly stepchildren can do it as well. But I like I said, I'm committed to cleaning up the registration database because that's the first step in eliminating the possibility of fraud.
Mr. Chair. So hypothetically, every person that died, somebody could come in and try to use their name to vote in their place?
Hypothetically, they could try. Now,
But now here's my question, and this is not your opinion, this is just a question. I would ask you for your opinion. How many people, to your knowledge, in Wayne County have come in your administration and all the previous 10 years, that there's evidence that somebody used some dead person's identification and voted?
I don't know of any.
Of any. So hypothetically, though, every person that did die, someone could try that, but to your opinion, no, not your opinion. There's no facts to say that that has happened in Wayne County and maybe in North Carolina. Otherwise, it would no doubt have hit the newspaper, and
I
we
can
would know
say,
that.
in my tenure, the board has not handled any protest or challenge that involves that issue.
All right, then I want to go on just 1 second and ask another question while I'm asking the question. The online voting, the online registration. An ID is required out there in the field someplace when that computer, that online registration is done, but I heard you say it had to be a hard copy that will eventually get to your office. So the online registration requires someone to verify that the identification matches up with that person who's doing the registering for that person. So that process is only as good as the identification out in the field. Is that
Well,
possible?
the online registration, the ability to download a registration form, which that's all it is, and then the voter has to print it out, sign it, and turn it in. Whenever, due to the Help America Vote Act, HAVA, as it's lovingly referred to, the first time you vote and you registered by mail, in other words, you did not come in person and hand in that registration, you have to show identification. That accounted for, and I'll be off by a few heads, but in Wayne County, when we went into the 2012 general election, that was about 1,600 people that applied to.
So the online vote, the online registration, the absentee ballot is the integrity of it is guaranteed by the tenacity of which folk are asking for registration, getting the information right, and getting into your office, and that person becomes eligible to vote. I mean, what I'm getting at is, it's working right because all that stuff has been taking place. I mean, I'm not trying to lead your answer.
To the best of my knowledge,
Okay,
yes.
that's what I'm getting at.
I would love to be able to tell you with 100%,
Okay.
but if I were that clairvoyant, I'd be buying a lottery ticket right now.
But I won't ask you for your opinion this
Yeah.
time, but I will ask you just if you would want to give a possible percent to this. What percent of persons do you think might be turned away from voting on that day of voting because if you required an ID that you would have to have in your pocket at that time, because the nature of young people may not have that ID with them at that time? I'm just looking for a possible percent of persons who would be turned away.
I don't have a percentage, and the reason why I don't have a percentage is under federal law, if a person presents themselves to vote, and for whatever reason, whether it be not having the ID that's required of them, or we can't find them, they're not on our list, they are required to be offered a provisional ballot. Now, if they choose to not vote that ballot and walk out, I can't bodily bring them back in and make them, but they are required to be offered a provisional ballot.
Thank you.
Mr. Pate.
Thank you. Ed asked a lot of the questions I was going to ask you anyway. But, people get confused as to what's really online and what's not. And actually, you're printing off a registration form that you're going to have to turn in by mail or in person. And I would suggest that we maintain that system to protect the integrity of the system, because I've seen interactive systems in my old job where fraud was rampant. And if you let people just register and have a PIN number, it's just, you went up a can of words you'll never clean up.
Right.
And I don't know if that decision is made locally or about State Board of Elections, but they
That
need
would
to keep
be
that
a-
in mind.
That would be a state decision.
Yeah, probably would be. I just wanted to make that comment because we got to protect this integrity of this system.
And keep in mind, when anyone registers, we mail them a voter registration card. Now, we do rely on the Postal Service, and that's its own can of worms, but we do make an attempt to contact that voter and to confirm that Joe C. Smith is at 123 Smith Street. If that registration card, voter registration card, comes back to us undeliverable, then that voter becomes inactive. And what inactive means is that it flags the voter in the system. It doesn't toss them out or anything of that nature, but it flags them so that if they come in to vote, it prompts us to ask the question of, hey, wait a minute, we sent you a card at 123 Smith Street, and it came back undeliverable. What happened? Now, it can be something as simple as, oh, well, I have a P.O. box, because it's got to get to them via the mail. Or it can be, down on my luck and I had to move in the 6 weeks time frame between, and I've seen that happen. Or they left off a north and south. That's why the geocode is so important. So there is a process beyond just turning in the registration system,
But you
the
allow those
registration
people to
form.
vote?
I'm
You
sorry.
allow those people to vote?
Once they clear up the issue, yes.
I mean, do they show an ID to show their address at that point, or what are they doing?
That's kind of still sticky because one of the things that the ID that's required of the individuals who register by mail for the first time when they go to vote, that ID is not to be used to confirm their address. It's just confirm that Rosemary's Rosemary.
Okay.
So when you get into, if a person is inactive in our system, and we, a lot of times, most of the time they've moved just since the last election is what that normally entails, they do not have to show proof that they've moved from 123 Smith Street to Highway 117, whatever house address that might be. So there's, it is fun. It's a process that is ongoing every day.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Daughtery.
I didn't know we were going to debate the legislation that is, that is coming up here, but I would be remiss if I did not ask this question. Are you aware of any voter who appeared to vote in this last election that complained that someone had already voted in their stead?
Yes.
You are aware of that? Because I got a number of calls in regards to that. So my question to you is, who would have voted for that individual, used their name, signed their name evidently, if it was during early voting, signed their name that I am in fact this individual, committed fraud by doing so. So in fact, there is evidence that fraud did occur.
Well, let's back up just a second, because
Okay.
the instances that I am personally aware of,
All right.
what we ended up because each time we got the calls in our office, we did investigate.
Okay.
What happened? How did we get to this point? What we found in the instances that we were made aware of is that it wasn't that I went in and said, I'm Joe Daughtery and I'm going to vote in his place. In most cases, it was the precinct official would pick Joe Daugherty Sr. instead of Joe Daugherty Jr.
In every occurrence?
The ones that I'm aware of.
In every occurrence. So no fraud occurred?
I'm not aware of any person that walked in with the deliberate intention of voting in the place of someone else.
Now that was qualified, that answer, with the deliberate intention. My question is, in fact, did someone other than the actual voter appear? I mean, let's not split hairs here.
Right.
You know, there were instances where voters complained that when they appeared to vote, that someone had already voted in their name. And they had to actually vote a provisional ballot. Is that correct?
Right, they were offered a
So
provisional
let's
ballot.
not split hairs here.
Right.
Someone actually voted in their name. If they were not able to get their ballot, someone else had to have voted for them because they were marked as voted, and they received a provisional ballot.
True,
Is that true?
but I don't believe that the person who voted in
Well, that's your
their place-
opinion, but somebody did in fact vote, and that voter was not allowed to receive a ballot as they were entitled. They had to get a provisional ballot.
which is the process.
Well, that's the process, but the point is, you're making it out as if, in answering Commissioner Camardi's questions down here, that, well, there's just absolutely no fraud. No one's voting in behalf of someone else, that in fact it does occur.
Wait a minute.
And, you know, I'm just saying that I get concerned because I've been on the board, and I recall all of these questions coming up, where people complained that they appeared to vote on Election Day, and they were denied a proper ballot because during early voting, it was already registered that someone had voted in their behalf, or used their name to get a ballot. And they actually could only receive a provisional ballot because that's the only way you could handle it. So something went wrong if a Joe Daughtery had appeared, or someone had appeared and had mentioned, Joe Daughtery is my name, no identifications required, so all you're going by is whatever I state my name as being. I get a ballot, Joe Daughtery's name is marked as voted, is voted, I show up on Election Day to vote, and they said, well, Joe, you've already voted. Well, no, I haven't. So there are instances where that occurs. Yes or no, that in fact someone did?
We did have individuals who appeared to vote, and they were told that they had already voted.
Thank you.
Through our investigation, we discovered that it was an error on the part of the precinct official, in that they selected the wrong person's name when they pulled up the individual's names.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayo, and then Mr. Camardi.
Yes, one other question to follow up on the voters that are deceased. Let me say that maybe you don't know what's actually taking place at the polls, just maybe, because according to your records, these people are still eligible to vote, even though they're deceased. Is that correct? If they're on the Board of Elections and they're registered, whether they're deceased or not, they are eligible to vote, technically, legally.
They will appear on our voter registration database, yes.
Unless a person is identified at the poll by a poll worker, that this person is able to vote, you would never know, because according to your records, this person's still eligible to vote.
If no one challenged that person's right, yes, you're correct.
All right. Okay, thank you.
One file, redirect, I'm just kidding. The fact is, no criminal intent was discovered. You just said it was a mistake at the poll worker or something like that effect. There was no criminal evidence found that someone did that on purpose, and there was no one charged. And so there's not been any criminal record that actually took place, because we know that in this great expanse of the world, anything almost is possible. We're after whether there was criminal intent, whether fraud actually took place, whether it's ever been documented. That's all I was.
There was no protest or challenge filed with the board now, and that's the procedure that would be followed if that would happen. And were I to get a phone call based on that information, alleging something like that, then my immediate response would be to them, then you or the voter would need to file a challenge or protest, and the board would hear it through the proper procedures.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Bell.
According to the county commissioner's handbook, one commissioner is not supposed to debate another one. So I want you to understand that I'm not debating.
I must have already got a copy of it.
Okay. But anyway,
Mr. Bell.
okay. I didn't know we was on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
You know, it's amazing to me, and I sit here and listen to all the rhetoric and everything that's being said. I just like to make a brief comment. Now, if you guys had gone through what I've gone through during my lifetime, you wouldn't even be entertaining this thing about whether or not some dead person have gone up and voted or not. My first time trying to vote, I was in the military. Came home to Clinton, North Carolina, going to register and vote. And the first thing we put in front of me was a little jar of beans about this big that I was supposed to guess how many beans was in that jar. Now, you see, if you've gone through that kind of stuff, you wouldn't even be trying to think about somebody not being able to vote. I was not able to register and vote my first time because of these poll gimmicks that were used back then. This is a good system that we have now. And I guarantee you there's nobody up here working harder than I do out there in the field in Wayne County, registering people and working with people, and I have yet to see one inequity in voter or anybody trying to vote that weren't authorized to vote. I've never seen it. And I've been working for over 30-some years in this county, and I have not seen one case yet.
And I hope you don't.
So keep up the good work. Y'all doing a good job.
Thank you. Any,
Okay, any other comments from the commissioners?
And that won't debate you, Joe.
Rosemary, thank you so much. Are you finished? Or would you
I've
like-
got about 2 more slides,
Okay.
and I'll be good. Some of the other things that we are working on, I have actually submitted to the state a way to automate our provisional ballots, so that there are 2 main parts when we process provisionals. There's the data entry part of it, where we actually just simply enter in the information that the provisional voter gives us when they complete their provisional ballot. And then we also have to do the research to make sure that that person is or isn't eligible, to make sure that their ballot is counted if they are and not if they're not. I have suggested that the state develop an automated process where the data entry part is actually done at the polling place while the voter is there, so that we can gather the most information possible. I treat every provisional ballot as if it were my own, because God forbid that you deny somebody who is truly eligible their ballot. That is something that the state board has taken into account. They have the staff has said to me that they think it's a great idea. It's not something that will be in place in the near future, but certainly something that we work towards. What that would do is speed up the ability and give us more time to do research to make sure that we are processing our provisional ballots very carefully. Certainly we do that anyway, but the more time I can get us, the better. Also, I'd like to streamline our end-of-day processes within legal requirements. I do have a motto that we will do it right and not right now, but certainly anytime we can get results in on election night any sooner than what we've been doing is always a good thing. But certainly I'm going to encourage my precinct officials to make sure their data is intact before they do that. Just a quick run through of the schedule of what is coming up. The new board members will be appointed on July the 16th. As you know, with the change in the party of the governor, we will have 2 Republican members and 1 Democratic member for the next 2 years. Filing for municipal and sanitary district water boards will be July the 5th, start July the 5th at noon. It will run through July the 19th at noon. New precinct officials will be appointed August the 20th. Municipal and sanitary district elections will be held in November. Filing for 2014 is in February. And the May primary is May the 6th, 2014. And we've kind of already touched on a lot of these, but our future outlook, and it's going to be very difficult to do the budget for our office this year. The 2 elections that will fall into the budget year that's coming up is, of course, the November election for the sanitary and municipal districts, and then the primary for the May. Generally, midterm elections are fairly slow in turnout by comparison. They don't have to be, but they historically are. But we do have a Senate seat and the potential for some constitutional amendments to be on the ballot, which may bring, I haven't seen anything quite as controversial as the last one, but certainly amendments as well as the Senate seat may bring a bigger turnout than usual. We have potential changes in election law that are coming. I don't know at this point how expensive or not expensive implementation may be, but there's been a lot of discussion that one-stop voting may be cut back, it may be expanded. We don't know at this point. There's a lot of things on the table right now that the legislature is considering. I can tell you that Wayne County voters like their one-stop. Out of the 51,000 people that voted in 2012, over 35,000 of them did it at a one-stop site. If we do cut one-stop hours and places and times by law, then we may have to look at either having more places open or the possibility of opening more precincts on Election Day, which then you get into paying more people, buying more equipment, finding more places. And as big as the county is, there's just we have a lot of requirements for buildings. We can't just pitch a tent on the lawn and have voting. We have lots of things we have to keep in mind when selecting polling places. So those are things that we have to consider that may affect our May 2014 primary. Voter ID, of course, is a hot issue. Right now, I think the last version of the bill that's in place is taking pictures at the polling place. And I will be perfectly honest and tell you that I'm doing good for my precinct officials to get the laptops working. I'm a little nervous handing them cameras at this point. But we'll do what we have to do, because that's going to be the law, whatever it ends up being. But that's another potential expense that I don't know if it will be an unfunded mandate from the state or not. We just don't know at this point. And then same-day registration, there's been a lot of debate as to whether or not it would continue or not, or if it should or shouldn't. At this point, I don't have an opinion one way or the other on it. It's not my job to have an opinion on it. But I will say that the one area that I have seen same-day registration benefit the counties is that it does cut down on the number of provisional ballots on Election Day. So while that may or may not translate into a cost savings, it certainly may translate into a little bit smoother Election Day or not. I don't know. Depends on if they keep it or do away with it at this time. I just simply don't know. And if you really want to feel we're going to be halfway to the next presidential at the end of next year, and that's going to be here before we know it. They come like Christmas.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask just one question?
Mr. Bell?
Would it be...
Mr. Bell, these are hot.
Oh, I keep
So they
forgetting.
can pick
Yeah,
up.
I understand. Wouldn't it be cheaper if the county, or every county for that matter, would have a nice camera system sitting right there, so when people walk through the door and they give the name, and this is being taken, and if anybody's afraid that somebody's going to vote that's illegal, you would have a record right there showing that person say, I'm John Doe, and they could always go back and check. I mean, it seemed like to me that would be cheaper than some of the other methods that they're talking
Well,
about
I
doing.
think the current legislation that's being proposed, and from what I understand, it's got a long way to go before it gets to the governor's desk, is that they're promoting something like that. Then if you don't already have a photo ID, in most cases a driver's license, that you could opt to have your picture taken at the polling place. The issue becomes, that's one more process to put on election officials who are trained by law, but these folks only do this job once or twice a year. And then you run into an additional training. But, we're going to do whatever gets put into the general statutes. I haven't priced the cost yet, because I'm not sure if they're going to want to do it in terms of a physical camera, point and shoot camera, or if they're going to want to automate it through a laptop, through a webcam type system. I do know that there is HAVA money still available from the federal government, that if the state legislature funds the maintenance of effort part of it, then that HAVA money may be available in the form of grants to the counties to purchase whatever equipment might be necessary, but that's still a ways away before we will know the outcome of all of that.
Any other questions from the commissioners, comments?
Well, I would like to close
Carter?
one final comment. verbally.
Mr. Kamara?
Because we've talked quite a bit this morning about the fact there was absolutely no fraud and it's not taking place, we haven't seen any. Just for the record, I would like to say that it sounds like it's going to be a great expense, probably passed on down to the county, to verify something this can't happen, that hasn't happened yet, while we're looking to try to save dollars everywhere we can. And it just simply seems like to me that it's something else coming from the state, that one of these days the county's going to have to pay for, that it sounds like an unnecessary expense to me. Of course, if somebody can enlighten me about, the rationale of spending this money, I'd be glad to hear it.
Thank you, Mr. Camardi.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comments? Mrs. Blizzard, thank
good.
you so much.
You're welcome.
And thank you for doing all you can to protect the integrity of our system, voting system here in Wayne County.
We will certainly keep
Thank
doing
you.
it.
Thank you.
Mhm.